John Benoit. It's been a long time since I've seen that name. Yay. Thanks for joining us.
So Carol, you're going to use your microphone to talk to them. Yes. Correct.
Ready?
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'd like to call to order the special joint meeting of the Lakeport City Council and the Lake County Board of Supervisors. We are going to do roll call. We'll start with the City of Lakeport. We have Kelly clerking tonight.
Yes, so good evening. Roll call. Councilmember Froyo.
Here.
Councilmember Green.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Parlett.
Here.
And Mayor Matina.
Here. And we'll do roll call for the county supervisors. Johanna.
Okay, so Supervisor Simon.
Here.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Here.
Supervisor Scott.
Here.
Supervisor Pyska.
Here.
And Chair Crandall.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Sheriff Martin, do you want to lead us tonight?
Yes, thank you. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone to City Hall in Lakeport. We were talking before the meeting started. It's been a long time since we've all been together, maybe 3 or 4 years since we've had a joint meeting. We're really happy to have everyone here together tonight. Did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And just wanted to say thank you for having us here. And it's a very good moment for us. So we're glad to be here and be a part of this.
So tonight we are looking at the Lakeport City Council and the Lake County Board of Supervisors will discuss and consider a joint city-county tax sharing agreement for the proposed South Lakeport Annexation Area. I wanted to also thank all the staff. The city and county have been working really hard on this, and we appreciate all the time and hours and extra hours you've put into this to get us to this place. So Nick Walker is our finance director, Kevin Ingram, city manager, and Susan and Carol online. There she is. Thank you so much. And we'll turn it over to you guys to introduce this.
Wonderful. Thank you and good evening, Madam Mayor and Chairman Crandell. Thank you. It's a pleasure having the board here with us this evening as well with the council. So I think despite the inconvenience of COVID, it's very exciting to have this opportunity to have both entities together here this evening, and we'll do our best. I know that we've got some members potentially over in the board chambers as well, some folks on looking to participate via Zoom, and then of course folks here in the chamber We'll do our best to accommodate everybody, and we just hope that people have patience with us as we go through this. Thank you to everyone in the audience this evening for coming out for this important discussion, whether you're in person or virtually, to consider the proposed annexation of the South Lakeport area, which consists of about approximately 137 acres adjacent to South Main Street in Soda Bay. My name is Kevin Ingram. I'm the city manager here with the City of Lakeport, and I'll be presenting this evening in conjunction with Susan Parker, Assistant County Administrative Officer. So we'll kind of be tag teaming a quick little presentation that we have for you. There are a number of other folks here today, panelists that we have who have been participants in putting this agreement together, and certainly they're here to answer questions. I know John Benoit from LAFCO. We have Sheriff Martin here, Brad Rasmussen, Police Chief with Lakeport, as well as a number of others who are certainly here to help and assist us answer any questions that we have going forward. I think it goes without saying that for many years, this issue has been both challenging and controversial, with strong opinions on both sides. But for the first time, both county and city have found some common ground on the future of the South Lakeport area. I want to provide special thanks, as I said, to Lake LAFCO. They've provided vital service in helping both of us meet together here and come to this mutually beneficial agreement. Move to get the slide presentation up. As I said, we have a couple of quick ones. I won't bore everybody to death. We certainly won't relive the whole history of the annexation process, but there are certainly some highlights that we want to kind of bring to everybody's attention to kind of facilitate the discussion this evening. Next slide. Let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. The annexation area, as I mentioned, consists of about 50 parcels, and it's approximately 137 acres. The area is entirely on the east side of State Highway 29, stretching from the current city limits along the remaining length of South Main Street to the junction with Highway 175. It then extends an additional half a mile along Soda Bay Road to just about where the 90-degree bend is in the roadway there. And Susan, please interrupt me.
I will. No worries.
As I noted, I don't want to go through the full 40 years of history here, but I do think there are some important points to kind of to talk about that kind of brought us to where we are today. The first being going back to 2014, the city began some formal work on an annexation application. This was mostly preparing the CEQA document, the California Environmental Quality Act document. Issues were raised at that time regarding the city's sphere of influence and specifically how it dealt with agricultural lands. We looked at this again and ended up working with LAFCO and eventually amending the city's sphere of influence, kind of removing some of those large agricultural parcels out of the annexation area. And then began again our work with putting together a formal annexation application to Lake LAFCO. At LAFCO's recommendation, a third-party fiscal analysis was conducted in 2020. Following this analysis, both the city and county agreed to sit down and look at kind of hashing out a new, more mutually beneficial tax sharing agreement, which kind of was, I would say, perhaps the largest contentious piece in the annexation process. A special thank you to MRG, who was brought on by Lake LAFCO to help the city and county facilitate this discussion. They conducted the fiscal analysis and also were right there by our sides through this negotiation process. The county and city negotiations were conducted in good faith over pretty much over the entire period of some of 2020 and 2021, interrupted heavily, as you can imagine, by COVID. So that certainly made it a little bit more difficult, but we found a way to get through it. And we were committed to these good faith negotiations, and those heavily focus on two priorities. The first, sustainably delivering the best possible public services and governance to residences, businesses, and property owners in the project area. And then secondly, ensuring efficient use of public funds. A bulk of the agreement centers on the subject of sales tax, but it also covers other important components as well. Some of these include the South Main Soda Bay Road Corridor Project, ensuring the continuation and the development of that project through a cooperation between two entities, and agreeing to begin discussions on the existing wastewater agreement between the two entities that is set to expire in 2026. This agreement concerning wastewater extends much wider than just the annexation area. It actually extends into North Lakeport and some other areas south of the annexation area. And it was agreed throughout the process that it's mutually beneficial to both entities, this current agreement, and there are lots of reasons for us to continue that relationship, and getting started on it sooner rather than later is probably a good idea.
And I would just like to add that both Special Districts Director Scott Harder and Public Works Director Scott DeLeon will be available to answer any questions after the presentation.
As noted, the bulk of the tax sharing agreement centers around the sharing of sales tax revenues in the annexation area. As one can imagine, this was the most contentious area of negotiation between the two entities. But at the end of the day, I can say with very high confidence that this agreement not only meets the objectives that we just discussed, ensuring efficient use of public funds and ensuring the delivery of the best possible services to residents, businesses, and property owners in the area, but it really does incentivize cooperation throughout the agreement as well. Period one, or the adjustment phase of the agreement, centers around the installation of a public water service, which would include providing fire suppression systems through fire hydrants in the area, and the completion of the regionally important South Main Soda Bay Road Corridor Project. This agreement solidifies that commitment by both entities to complete this work together and upgrading and providing these vital public services to the annexation area. The cooperation phase, which is the second portion of the revenue sharing piece, is where we expect to see probably the greatest growth. Kind of after water and the road project are completed, we're expecting to see the greatest growth in here. And during that phase of the period, both the city and the county would be sharing in the economic growth of that area. So once again, there are incentives built in for both entities to continue to work together to not only provide vital services to the annexation area, but to continue to ensure that regionally this area prospers. And then finally, at the close of it, the permanent phase still includes a number of protections for both county and city if significant declines in sales tax revenue occur. As I noted, that one of the other component elements outside of sales tax is ensuring the continuation of the South Main Street Soda Bay Road project. As Susan mentioned, Scott DeLeon, Public Works Director for the county, is here to assist any questions if we get stuck. But I think overall, there have been significant delays to this project. It's been going on for quite some time. But if you've taken a chance to look into those, as I'm sure the board certainly has, you can see that it's quite a complex project. There's a lot going on. It's a very environmentally sensitive area. The acquisition of right-of-way from the number of properties is certainly a procedure to get through. So I mean, it's been moving forward at a slow pace, but at the same time, we're nearing a point where it seems most adequate to make sure that we get water in there at the same time, so we're not burdening businesses by digging up that road twice. I think according to the latest schedule that we received, once the right-of-way acquisition phase is completed, the undergrounding of utilities could then start, and that's roughly looking at the end of 2023, early 2024. So expectations for the annexation. I believe the agreement before us today strikes the right balance and timeline in achieving the stated objectives. Residences and businesses can expect improved fire protection, access to public water, emergency resilience through the installation of fire hydrants, and the continuation of quality law enforcement in the area. These improvements will result in increased public safety, lower fire risk, and hopefully even lower insurance costs for residents and business owners. I believe we have some comments here from Chief Thomas as well. He's hoping to make it this evening. If he doesn't, I could read some of those comments into the record where he talks specifically about how these improvements can have that added benefit of hopefully reducing insurance in the area as well. The idea, as I noted before, is the cooperative nature of this is that future economic growth will benefit both the city and county alike through a fair and equitable tax sharing agreement. Next steps in the process, I think tonight's task before us is looking at potentially approving then and formalizing that tax sharing agreement, but it by no means actually finishes the annexation process. It just sort of moves it on to the next step where it will be reviewed by Lake LAFCO, the local area formation commission, who's in charge of those boundary decisions. That board is made up of a couple of representatives from your board, the Board of Supervisors, and a representative from both the City of Lakeport and the City of Clear Lake, as well as special districts and a couple members from the public as well. That entity will review the annexation application in its entirety to see how it meets with state provisions and public services. I think what we've done here with this tax sharing agreement is kind of ensuring that we have a mutually beneficial agreement that really works at trying to kind of make sure that those public benefits are available to the annexation area as a whole. As I mentioned before, John Benoit, the Executive Director of Lake LAFCO, he's also here this evening. He'll probably be better equipped than I or anybody else here to answer any questions about those next steps. But I think we can state that if this tax sharing agreement goes forward, the next step would be kind of a public notice in a setting of a public hearing before LAFCO, where folks can, certainly the public, residents, property owners, businesses can all attend to make their concerns regarding this project known. And that will be somewhere in the area of March, April, depending on how the legal noticing period falls.
And I think one thing we wish to import to everyone who's listening is that this is a completely open process, that we encourage the residents, the business owners, and those interested to communicate with us their concerns or issues that they may have so we can address them, in person and via the website.
Yeah, and Susan and I spent our whole day on Friday. We went out and met as best we could with all the businesses down in that area, providing them with information about tonight's meeting. Additionally, it's our intent to work towards having kind of a community workshop prior to any LAFCO meeting, getting some of the big players in the room. Hopefully Sheriff Martin and Brad will join us to be there available to answer questions on law enforcement related issues. Scott Harder, along with Paul Harris from the city side on the utilities aspect to kind of answer questions. So our idea is to get everybody sort of in the same room to answer some of those questions in a more informal setting and certainly give information about that upcoming LAFCO meeting once it's available. Just quick note, we were made aware of a language clarification that was needed to the agreement just a couple days ago at the request of the county auditor, controller clerk. This is just some simple language to help clarify how the property tax portion of it will work. So it's a couple quick, I don't know, I know that it's both been reviewed by the city attorney and county council, and it's just a really quick piece to make sure that that is set to go if this annexation does move forward. Did we provide? And I believe everybody got a copy of the new revised agreements, and those changes are found in section 3 and section 4.
Okay.
And again, they're very minor and they're more housekeeping and clarifying than any actual change.
As noted just recently, that there will be lots of opportunity for additional community outreach. We're doing our best to routinely get new information up on the website, lakeportannexation.org. We've been able to get all the tax sharing agreement stuff, as we're going to continue to monitor as frequently asked questions. If there's some more questions being asked that are not currently on there, we'll continue to update and make sure that we're getting those answers out there. And I think more critically, when we do have a meeting date set with Lake LAFCO, is getting some pieces together to host a community meeting, preferably down in the annexation area itself, to make it as easy as possible for the residents as business and property owners to participate. And certainly the LAFCO process also has a number of opportunities for people to participate. Bruno.
Can you go back to the previous slide of the changes? It doesn't look the same as what's printed, at least in front of me.
I think we did this presentation yesterday, and I think there has been a couple of clarifications by council.
Wondering if we can, since there's some confusion, if we can read out for the public to know exactly what's been changed and what's been updated.
Section.
Great. Okay.
I'll read into the record section 3, effective date. This agreement shall become effective on the date of the filing of the statement of boundary change for the annexation area with the State Board of Equalization pursuant to Government Code sections 54902 and 57204.
Section 4, we didn't make any changes other than we spelled out tax rate area as opposed to TRA.
Okay. Is that the only change? Those are the only changes.
Thank you.
I think
Just to follow up on that, I don't see sections 1 and 2 either, so I didn't see section. Is that in the documents we have up here, the amended copy, or?
Section 1 is the recitals, and section 2 is the definitions, is what I understand it as.
Correct. And no changes were made to those sections.
Oh, I see.
I think that concludes staff presentation. Unless Susan, you have anything else you want to?
No, I do not. We're available for any questions you may have.
And like I noted as well, John Benoit from Lake LAFCO is available, as well as some other key staff members from both the county and the city.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. The city and the county both had negotiation teams from elected officials, Supervisor Scott and Simon, and Councilmember Parlett and myself. Would anyone like to add anything?
I would actually like a clarifying question. If John I mispronounce his last name, Benoit from LAFCO, if you could just quickly go through the process with LAFCO for the public so they're aware. I know, as Kevin pointed out, this is the first step in many, but could you just quickly kind of run through what would the next steps be so that the public is aware of what to expect?
I had to unmute first, sorry. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, after the property tax sharing agreement is approved and signed, there's a notice LAFCO is required to send a notice to the newspaper, affected agencies, the registered voters, and the landowners out there. And then with that notice, we set a public hearing date. And LAFCO typically meets they alternate every other month between Clear Lake and Lakeport. The next meeting that we have in Lakeport is March 16th, which appears to be a good timeline. Assuming that the annexation is approved, there's a reconsideration period. And in the event someone believes that LAFCO did not consider all the facts in making its conclusions. And that will require LAFCO to meet again to consider the request for reconsideration. Now, there's also what we call conducting authority proceedings. These are protest proceedings. If in the event we receive a written protest by we're going to first of all notice this in such a way that if we do receive a written request by a landowner or registered voter, that for reconsideration, that we will have to go through a reconsideration process, which, I'm sorry, reconsideration. I'm confusing this with the, with that. We will need to go through a protest proceeding process, which could take another 3 months generally. Now, typically what happens if there's no written request for a either a reconsideration or a protest, then after 30 days, provided all the conditions of terms and conditions of the resolution are met, then LAFCO may record what we call a certificate of completion. Depending on what the commission chooses for the effective date, this date is normally it's when the effective date of the annexation is when the certificate of completion is recorded. However, it can be, say, June 30th, the end of a fiscal year. That all depends. That hasn't been determined yet. If there is a reconsideration request or a protest hearing, the noticing is the same as if it were an annexation proposal. So it'll be 21 days in advance to the newspaper agencies, voters, and landowners. And so if there's no request for reconsideration or conducting authority, the commission may record the certificate of completion within 30 days specifying the effective date. And normally the annexation is final. Well, it is final once the certificate of completion is recorded. And then the filing with the State Board of Equalization is required following the recording. So that's really the process. It's at this point, there's a lot that occurred before this point, but I won't go into that. So there is opportunities for the public to address the commission at the public hearing on the annexation.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Because I was under the idea that it was just registered voters in that area that would be able to do a protest. So now if a landowner did a protest, would they be able to be included in that vote, or is it still just the registered voters in that area?
No, that's what's quirky about the law is we need to notify registered voters and landowners. If we receive sufficient, say we receive sufficient protests to go to an election, then the registered voters are the ones that are going to vote on it, not the landowners. I had this come up in other places, and it is kind of weird, but since we have over 12 registered voters out there, they are the ones that will have the right to vote on this.
Thank you.
And don't say it makes sense, because it's the way it is.
Thank you, John. Any additional comments from Supervisor Simon or Councilmember Parlett? And then we'll take from the rest of the council. Supervisor.
No, Happy New Year, everyone. And it is good to be here again, together. So I think this opportunity, when I was added to the board or the negotiating team after Supervisor Brown stepped down, I'm happy where we're at right now. I know it took us a little while to get some traction to get to this point and to get here. But I think, as was said, both entities worked and, in a good cooperation to get to this point. So I'm happy to be here tonight, answer any questions that may come at us. And I'm hoping that we can take a step forward. When I was asked to be on this committee, in the history, I'll be very honest. In 2017, when I was running for office, he asked me about the Lakeport Annexation project. At that point, I had no idea. You know, that wasn't a South County issue at that point. But now I've been educated, obviously, by Carol and Anita and Susan as we work through this process to come to an agreement ultimately that's here tonight that I think is beneficial to both entities and our county as a whole to show cooperation in ways we can move forward. I'm also excited because I have not heard from all the landowners down there to hear what they have to say tonight and see how this process can move forward. So with that, that's all that I have to say. And this is just the beginning, as it was said. I also sit on the LAFCO board, so there's going to be that process that we go to with Supervisor Sabatier, and we'll continue the process if that's what happens this evening.
Councilmember Parlett, you were on the negotiating team. Did you want to add anything?
Yes, I would. You know, this mutually beneficial agreement, a lot of times when you do negotiations, you have what you call a win-win. And throughout this negotiating process, there's a lot of, I mean, I'll just say it, there was some previous like bad blood. And I think that what's happened over the last couple of years, we've come to a mutually beneficial agreement that gives the best possible delivery of services, sharing of public funds, working with the spirit of cooperation, and eliminating a lot of the adversarial kind of positions of certain people. But this particular agreement, I think, is not just a win for the city, a win for the county, but a win for the people down in those areas that are, I mean, I think Chief Thomas from the fire department mentioned that he was absolutely aghast at the fact that there was no hydrants down there in one of the most fire-ridden areas in all of the state, and the fact that Scott over there at the theater pays, you know, like, I don't know, something around $50,000 or $60,000 to have a water master and to do all this stuff. And then we've come through 2 years of drought, and here we're ready to bring in a water system. I think there's so many benefits to both the county, the city, and the people that live there. And I think it's crucial that everybody understand that this is not just a win-win for the county and the city with the tax sharing agreement that we've hammered out through all of these negotiations, but also for the citizens that live down there for the best possible delivery of services in every way, shape, and form. And I see this as something after 40 years, we are all part of something that could be so big and so beneficial to all concerned, which is a Rotary thing, okay? I had to throw that in there. But I really feel that this is such a great day if this goes through and everybody understands that it's a win-win-win for all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parlett. Well said. I would just add to that it really is, to see the cooperation is a really exciting step forward, because I just think of all the other things, if all working together, that we can accomplish in Lake County. And to be able to provide water in the future for that area will be a huge relief. Any other council members or supervisors before we open it to the public? Questions, comments? Sabatier?
Thank you very much, and happy to be here to have the discussion and also hearing from public input on this discussion item here. I do want to give kudos to the City of Lakeport for forcing the conversation. If the application had not been submitted to LAFCO, I'm not sure that this conversation would have moved in that same direction. LAFCO is the reason why we got the third party MRG involved, which then was able to provide a foundation for a better conversation to continue, because the past was haunting the conversation in the first place. And I think that it was mutually beneficial to have MRG involved to resettle the past and start a new conversation where we can move forward. I think that when we are in LAFCO, I'm one of the commissioners, we don't wear a county hat, we wear a LAFCO hat. There are specific rules that we need to look at and abide to, and making sure that the annexation makes sense. And so from a county perspective, it might be different than from a LAFCO perspective. But today, I'm here representing the county, but we will be looking at this possibly, if this moves forward, from a different perspective. And I know that Mayor Matina also knows the rules and regulations for being on LAFCO as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, then we will look at opening this to the public. Before we do that, Kelly, can you give us, for the people that are online, how they might speak?
Yes, I would be happy to do that. Pull my script up here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the joint meeting of the City of Lakeport City Council and Lake County Board of Supervisors. All attendees this evening will be placed in listen-only mode until opportunities for public comment are presented. If you wish to comment on an item, please use the raise your hand function when asked by clicking on the hand icon on your device. The organizer will take you off listen-only mode when it is your turn to speak, and you may also have to unmute yourself. In the event the above option does not function properly, you will also have the opportunity to submit text questions by typing your questions into the chat pane of the control panel. And questions or comments not related to a specific agenda item should be presented during general public comment time, which I do not believe we're having this evening. So yes, that's it. And I'm not sure if the County of Lake has other modes of participation or not.
Would that be Johanna?
The county does not have other modes of communication. We have the board chambers open and could host comments here, except that we have no members of the public present.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
So we will go ahead and open this to the public now. Would anyone in the room like to come up and speak? Hi, Scott.
Chair Crandall, Mayor Matina, and board and council members. My name is Scott Lauder. I own and operate the Lakeport Cinema and Lakeport Auto Movies. Also represent Tegmeyer Associates, the property owner. We're the largest property owner in the annexation area. Roughly almost 20% of the annexation area is our property, and we're delighted. 25 years ago, over 25 years ago, when I built the theater, we signed an agreement that we would support the annexation. And I'm here to say that we still support the annexation. That was a promise that was made by Supervisor Mackey then when we were working with her to get the project moving. So we're delighted. We're looking forward to the improved water service. I spend a lot of money on Water Master. We have a big water tank. We have to have our own fire pumps. That has to have a isolated electrical service. It's complicated. It's expensive. I had my Water Master was out today. My fire sprinkler people were out today working on fire pumps. So we're very excited about it. So we're wholeheartedly supportive. I think that well, I've got no complaints about the terrific service we've gotten from the Lake County Sheriff's Office. You know, we've been very lucky. They've been able to get there quickly, but they have a lot of area to cover. City of Lakeport PD, Chief Rasmussen, much smaller area, and I think it just makes a lot more sense to have us in the city. And so, like I say, we're very happy to be at this point. The tax sharing agreement looks really good. I was a LAFCO commissioner for 14 years in another county, so I'm familiar with that, reviewed it, and I'm glad to see that we're finally getting to this point. So thumbs up from us.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone online?
Seeing no hands raised on Zoom.
All right. One last chance. Okay, we'll bring it back to council members and supervisors. Any further discussion, questions? I have a question.
How many of the property owners are in agreement with this and how many are not?
That's a hard question to answer. I mean, I think, just even in our recent, discussions, when Susan and I went down to the businesses this past Friday, I think honestly, it's mixed. I mean, I think you hear a lot of folks in the area who are having trouble with their water systems, whether that be quantity or quality issues, or just having to meet, regulations of the state water board if they qualify as a private water system. So you hear that. We hear, folks not excited about the city sale tax, increases the additional, 1.5 cents above what they're currently doing there as well. I think probably the biggest struggle we had most recently is kind of separating out the roadway project from the annexation project. They're separate projects, but there's certainly, a lot of overlap. I think, the road project is certainly a driving force behind pushing the annexation forward now, kind of ensure that we can get water service in there at the same time. But it really is a mixed, and then you talk to property owners, you get different things. You talk to residents, you get a different thing. So it's mixed, and just some of that may be maybe not. I'm not familiar with what the change fully means, and just, certain comfortability of the way things are. So it's all across the board, and I think that's why it's important. We've talked several times about the other areas in this process as far as to kind of pull out that information from folks through that LAFCO annexation process. And there's plenty of opportunity for folks to voice that opinion through there as well.
And Jessica, I think it was important for us. We weren't surveying as we met with the individual businesses. We were there to inform and to be available to answer any questions or even bring back any of those questions back, to the technical folks to answer those questions. So it really was, we were very, we shouldn't have been surprised, but it was very pleasant, the number of people that were actually willing to speak to us, sit down, ask questions. And many were very direct and said, I didn't support this before and I don't support it now. And we respected their right to their opinion. But we did share the information we thought they needed to help them make that decision. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Martina. This is pretty complicated, and it's a little hard for everybody to understand. I know it took some diving into and a lot of question asking. We're all here, the county and the city, we're here together because we feel that this is in the best interest of the city, the county, the citizens of Lakeport, and the potential new Lakeport citizens in the annexation area. And my thought is if we had the time, because I was expecting more questions tonight, I'm wondering if maybe we could share in talking about the benefits of the annexation and how it affects everybody. And I was hoping that maybe Kevin could expand on that a little bit for us. It might lead to alleviating some of those preconceived ideas that people already have against the annexation if they understand it better. And I was hoping maybe he could share a little bit like he did with me. It also may be appropriate. It doesn't look like Chief Thomas with Lakeport Fire Protection District is going to be able to make it. I know they had a board meeting this evening at the same time. I do have comments from him that I can read into the record. They're a little lengthy, but if you bear with me, I can do that because I think that probably does kind of touch on one of the areas of cooperation that we're trying to move forward with the annexation process. So if that works for folks, I can read that in real quick. Or
Yeah, go ahead.
not so quick. This is from Chief Jeff Thomas with the Lakeport Fire Protection District. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all parties involved regarding this collaborative effort to address the critical water infrastructure needs here in Lakeport. With that said, as the first responding fire department in this area, having a reliable water supply is critical for my organization and the customers who rely upon us to quickly and efficiently put out fires. Considering normal modern day house fires, the fun times with Zoom. So considering normal modern day house fires, we have about 5 minutes before the combustible fire gases can completely involve the interior of a structure. And so his first point is Lakeport Fire has staffing and the ability to bring 1,000 feet of hydrant water supply line to any incident. Subsequently, in order to reach the midpoint of this area that is currently vacant of hydrants, we would need three fire engines to get there. Due to the proximity of our Lake County resource partners, this could create a significant delay in getting water to the fire. His second point, critical infrastructure protection. Critical infrastructure protection, the need to rapidly deliver water to sprinkled buildings, for example, Mendo Mill, would make the difference in a quick fire stop, thereby helping in the speedy recovery to get people back to work and critical services back online. The propane bulk storage facilities, although this is one of the most dangerous situations any fire department will face, it is the rapid and sustained fire flows of water delivery that can prevent this from becoming a catastrophic levee or tank explosion and subsequent firestorm. Lastly, and most important, we have residents in the area with an inadequate water supply. Considering normal modern day house fires, we have about 5 minutes before the combustible fire gases can completely involve the interior of a structure. With modern day building construction materials, plastic contents, we can count on fire doubling in size every 30 seconds. His third and final point, ISO, or Insurance Service Office, fire rating is a score provided to fire departments and insurance companies by the Insurance Service Office. The score reflects how prepared a community and area is for fires. While it mainly focuses on the local fire departments and water supply, there are other factors that contribute to an area's overall score. For the sake of this discussion, the area's water supply has a direct influence on insurance premiums and cost of doing business. I can see a direct cost-benefit analysis associated with improving our ability to rapidly mitigate fires during the incipient phase, thereby reducing the loss of life and property. Our current ISO rating is 04 for 4 years. In theory, that number can go down with modest improvement in your fire department's operational readiness and preparedness. The ideal number to get to is Class 1, which will take time and additional resources, but improving the area's water supply will greatly improve the overall effect. Thanks for the consideration. And that's signed Chief Jeff Thomas with the Lakeport Fire Protection District. I think as we noted in our previous discussion, the critical aspects for this area is providing that public water that's not currently there. So what you have is a number of private wells, which may work fine for an individual residence or a small business or something like that. But some of the larger properties down there, there are some issues with their wells that we have heard, whether those be quality or quantity. And then you have the added benefit or the added element that some of them may be considered under state law to be small public water systems. And that brings on a whole bunch of other kind of bureaucratic elements of having to get tested, and as Mr. Lauder brought up, having a water master and reporting and those sort of things. So I think bringing that public water down there makes sense for this highly urbanized area. And it's the critical opportunity to do that is with that road project when you're already going to be going in and undergrounding utilities and putting in other features and things like that. It makes the most sense to do those things at the same time. Because nothing, I'm sure it's same for Carol, nothing gets our phones ringing more than when you dig a new hole into a brand new roadway. So I think those are the critical elements that kind of make the timing the most ripe for moving forward with the annexation now. I think we've learned our lessons pretty well over the past few years of how serious a threat fire is. I think 6 or 7 years ago, I would have said there's no fire threat to that South Lakeport area from wildland fire outside of other areas. And I think we all know now that nothing's further from the truth. So I think those are all critical pieces that make the timing ripe to address these issues today. And I think we've really turned over a new leaf at the relationship between the city and the county, and come up with a cooperative path forward that not only gets these critical services to this area, but benefits both the city and the county and the larger region as a whole. I think that's the critical piece in why the timing is important now.
Thank you, Kevin. Is that what you had in mind?
It was. Could I follow up with something that Kevin and I talked about? That's the water again. I wanted to be sure that as most people in the room know, that Lakeport had a water and sewer increase lately, and I wanted to point out that this was not raised to raise money for the annexation area. And we've intended for a long time, long before I ever got here, that the city was going to close a loop, and that the City of Lakeport was going to provide this water. And this is one of the things that we bring to the party here. Another interesting part of this is that the county provides the underground infrastructure for the sewer, and we have an agreement to treat the water. And the city and the county working together is better than either one of us trying to do this alone. And I appreciate what we're doing here. This is something I've long wanted to see Lakeport go in this direction. I'm trying to think if there's any things that would make the residents unhappy down there, and if there is, would they step up to the microphone so maybe someone could alleviate their concerns. This agreement looks good for everybody involved, and that's why we're solidly behind it.
Any other supervisors, council members?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. When I was elected into the seat in 2017, I soon learned that annexation was a dirty word. So for me, I made it a goal. I felt it was very important to either get to the end of the annexation, because this has been going on for way too long, to either annex or get it off the table where we're not going to even talk about annexation. And to get to that process, we will need to have a tax sharing agreement. And I believe we have finally found a tax sharing agreement that is a win-win, as Councilmember Parlett pointed out, for both the county and the city. And for me, I believe it's very important for us to approve this so we can move forward and get to the voters and have them be able to make the final decision on this. Let's take it out of our hands and let's move this forward. And so that's where I stand on this.
Nick?
There were a couple hands raised.
Okay.
As for panelists, so you could go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. I think, Carol, you had your hand raised for a moment.
Yes, my hand was raised because the camera angle wasn't changing when the supervisors and council members were speaking, but it looks like somebody caught that and it has now been shifted.
Okay, Maria?
Thank you. I just wanted to express my profound appreciation for county staff, county leadership, city staff, and city leadership. When I started working with the County of Lake in 2006, it was very much as Tina said, annexation was a bad word. And it seemed like this one point of contention in an otherwise highly functional multi-jurisdictional relationship. And so it's so gratifying to see how both county and city sides, with your dedication to serving the public and with your persistence, it's just resulted in what I think is very clearly a pro-public position now. And it's just really, really cool. I mean, I didn't even know I'd live to see this, so I'm really excited. But I just really wanted to say thank you for all the county staff and the city staff that work together so well on an everyday basis, and for the people who have been part of this team who just really stuck with it to get us the product that's before us today. It looks great. It's easy to understand. So I'm just really thrilled with the end product. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Turner. Any other council members or supervisors?
Mayor Matina, Councilmember Parlett here.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, as Councilmember Froyo mentioned, he wonders what people could be questioning why this wouldn't be a good thing. Are there any onerous, compensatory requirements for people that are annexed for like expensive curb and gutter and hookups and all that? I think maybe Kevin or David could reply to that, because I don't think people understand that there's no obligation to hook up the water, and we're just making it available. I know that the Department of Water Resources thought that annexation was imminent years ago, and it wasn't, and there's certain businesses that are in serious need of the water, not the least of which is Scott over at the theater. So are there any compensatory onerous requirements being annexed into the city that would deter people from being involved? Do they have to put in curb and gutter and sidewalks and do other expensive things? Because the taxes that people pay when they come into a business are just a matter of doing business, just like credit card charges or anything else. If you buy it over in one city, the tax rate is 8.5%. You go to another, it might be 9%. Those are not expenses that the business incurs. These are expenses that the people that shop there pay. It's not a big deal. They need to know that that goes into the county or the city streets and the maintenance and the police protection and fire and all that stuff. It's not a big deal. But are there any other requirements of people that are in the annexed area that would deter them from being involved in such a wonderful project? Kevin?
I'll take the first shot at it, and then Susan can bail me out, and then maybe Scott DeLeon can bail us both out if we misspeak on something in regards to the road project. I think first, in regards to the water, it would not be mandatory. It would be a kind of an optional thing if that's something that your business, residence, or property needs. It would be an option that you go, and there of course would be fees associated with that hookup, and we're more than happy to work through those things, whether it be through a payment plan or something like that. If because I know some of these things are may be required by the state, so it may not be something that someone has a choice in it on. But first and foremost, the water system is optional. The nice thing about going in and doing this together with the road project is all the hard work that the region as a whole has done through Lake APC, which is our local area planning council, or our regional transportation body, in making this corridor project a high priority. I know we've all been frustrated with how long it's taken, but it is a large project. But it does include, to my knowledge, and this is where Susan or Scott may have to bail me out, but it does include curb and gutter improvements, and I'm not sure in regards to sidewalk if that's on both sides or if it's just one side, but those improvements would be coming in as part of that road project. So there would be additional roadway improvements or circulation improvements necessary to the property owners down there.
So Scott, do you wish to add any comments to Kevin's statements?
Well, just a respectful correction. The plans that we're currently working on right now do not include curb, gutter, and sidewalk. They do have a bike lane, so you have a center left turn lane, 2 through lane in each direction, and bicycle lanes. There will be some curb and gutter for drainage purposes, but it is not. It's not continuous. It's only for specific drainage issues and drainage problems where we need to put a curb in order to control the drainage.
Thank you, Scott.
So having said that, Madam Mayor, does that mean that members that are property owners and or registered voters, they would have to submit to some kind of expense of that, or is that just something that we let go and we deal with it later? Just so we know that they're not going to be obligated to pay into this because they joined the annexation.
Those roadway projects are funded through the regional transportation body. I know there are, there's Scott's been working through quite a bit with property owners there in regards to right-of-way acquisition, but the actual physical construction improvements would not be the responsibility of property owners within that annexation area.
So there's no additional expense for the annexation if anybody decides to join. They don't have to worry about some $40,000 or $50,000 additional expense. They're just going to have the opportunity to get water if they want it, and if they don't, they're fine. The only thing they're going to have to deal with is additional sales tax, and that would be it.
That's correct.
Anything else, Councilmember Parlett?
So that was great. I'm glad. I think there's no reason to object to this in any way, just like Councilmember Froyo said. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Green?
Yeah, thank you. Just very briefly, I just on the action item here tonight, the revenue share agreement, I read it frontwards and backwards, and as the council knows, I am a stickler for detail, and I could not find one letter out of here. I'm glad the auditor controller did, but I couldn't. So just to earn my keep, I would like to point out that the first slide in the slide deck said it was 2021. So we are meeting here January 11th, 2022, and I hope that date will be reflected on the agreement. As to the wisdom of coming into this is to me a victory for small d democracy. We're not putting a gun to the landowners' heads or the voters' heads in the proposed annexation area. We're asking them a question, and obviously it takes a lot of work to get there. I mean, I forget, was it 2 years ago and all that? There was a question about whether we should even put in a LAFCO application to dive into that 40 years of contention. But we did it, and we stuck to our guns as a city, and I'm glad we did. And here we are. And had we not done so, I don't think we would have anything close to what I do feel. I do feel a sense of collaboration with the county that I feel was absent just a short time ago. So I want to just pile on that praise to staff and the willingness of the Board of Supervisors and our elected council to even come here. I do think there are compelling reasons from the city standpoint and the county standpoint for this to move forward, but I don't expect the landowners to do that. They're going to vote their conscience, they're going to vote their self-interest, and more power to them. But I do think we can do things to say that apart from their self-interest in their particular parcels, there are really good reasons to support this annexation. Not because the revenue share is this, that, or the other. That's for the city and the county to worry about. They worried about it, and what we have here is a very fair, more than fair agreement. But there are other things that you can't put a price tag on. The self-determination of a city. Cities need to grow. Cities have needs to do economies of scale in the projects they're planning, just like the county does. The fire district, I'm the liaison to the fire district. I'm very sensitive to the issues that were raised by the fire chief. And I hope the landowners and the residents both take that to real heart, even if they don't intend to hook up immediately. Being able to complete that loop, being able to improve fire protection services in that area is critically important. And with apologies to Mr. Benoit and the LAFCO process to come, what a wonky, this is the most, I get why people would have some, like what, am I a landowner today? Am I a voter today? Do I get to vote twice if I own land and I'm registered to vote? maybe we can clarify that. But I don't see any harm in approving a tax sharing agreement that on paper is perfect. I don't see any harm at all in getting this to LAFCO and taking those next steps in the public process. You're going to get plenty of bites at this apple. So I want the public to have every confidence that whatever happens with the vote, yay or nay, that this is a very public, very transparent, very complicated, and we have done every little bit of due diligence up to this point to get it here. And if we do approve this tonight, that LAFCO will pick up this ball and run with it and eventually get a proposal to the voters one way or another. And just one point of clarification. So if there's no protest and there is no reconsideration request, I forget, does it just go through, or the only election happens if there's a protest or reconsideration, right?
Election would happen if there was a sufficient protest, so over 25%.
Exactly. So there could be any number of reasons why people might object to this. I don't see them breaking down the doors. We may have ongoing discussions in the next few months, another opportunity at LAFCO, but our job is almost done here. We have crafted a really good proposal. It's almost wrapped up and ready to go to LAFCO. LAFCO is going to put a bow on it and get it to the people down there. And ultimately, they will decide whether they want to be members of the great city of Lakeport or not. And more power to them for doing that. I hope they come in because, no offense to the county, I think we're cool. I think the city of Lakeport is cool. And so I think you should come in on that basis alone. But if it's all about water and rev share, you go down that road too. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, you know, I'll have to say that we do know what a stickler you are, Councilman Green.
Wow.
Some of the meetings that we've shared before.
I'm sorry.
But that's good stuff. No, it's good. We're glad. And, you know, if not for that, we don't get things done properly. And appreciate the hard work that Mayor Matina, Councilman Parlay, Supervisor Simon, and Vice Chair Scott have put into this. I know that it takes a lot to come and just sit down at the table together along with the staff as well. You know, it feels good to bring something to the finish line. I know that I feel like I'm the pitcher in the last third of an inning throwing the ball over the plate, and we still have a little bit to go, but we're here, and it's always good to bring something to an end. 1995, I think I was a senior in high school, so here we are. So just glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. Yes. PJ, did you want to come up?
I just have one question. PJ Racine, I own the very last parcel that's being considered for that annexation. I'm not going to get into anything. I'm not for it, but I do have one question, and that has to do with what was brought up earlier, not necessarily curb and gutter, but sidewalks. If I now am part of the city and I decide that I want to do an capital improvement, am I going to have to put in sidewalks? The way that the current ordinance is that you would be required to put in curb gutter and sidewalks. But I think considering the amount of effort that's going into that roadway project, that's something that the city needs to seriously look at of whether or not that's appropriate for that area. Yeah, because personally, I'm on the curve. I have, I don't know, it's 400 or 500 feet. So if I do one small improvement, am I going to have to put in a huge amount of?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but you can't tell me one way or another. And that's talking, you know, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So that's something that I am looking at if I want to do any capital improvement. Everybody on that corridor, most of them have a very large face on Soda Bay Road. So that's going to be a very large capital improvement they're going to be required to do if they do a capital improvement. I mean,
I totally agree with you. Sidewalks have been my pet peeve for years. I mean, there's so many people doing work to their home without pulling a permit because they don't want to deal with the sidewalk.
Exactly.
So how do we find a happy medium? I'm sure that we will continue to work towards that and find a way.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and right now that to kind of further Mayor Matina's point, I mean, that's one of the council's goals this past couple of years. And we have an ad hoc committee that is specifically looking at that sidewalk issue, because it's been an issue not just in the annexation area, but certainly everywhere around it, as the mayor's noted, that I think we have a lot of work that goes on without permits to try and get around that somewhat archaic provision in our current ordinance. Also just want to note too, just for the record, that the maximum amount of sidewalk that anybody would need to put in is 130 feet. That's the way the ordinance is currently written. We focus that mainly on meeting ADA improvement standards. And I think that's another reason why with this road project that's going to be built to those ADA components that might not be the best fit to require all those provisions down in the annexation area.
Right.
So I think it's a natural component that, after any annexation, there would certainly be a need on the city's part, if it goes through, to review certain standards and see if those are applicable to that new area. Because there may be other items as well that are not the best fit for that specific area.
Well, and there's also property owners that would probably like to make improvements, but just don't even bother looking into it because they don't want to deal with the sidewalk aspect. So we know that's an issue and something that we want to make that better. I would just add to the conversation that I think change is hard. I think there are property owners that buy their property and they feel like if they're in the county, no one's going to tell them what to do, and they like that and they don't want to change that. This has been part of the sphere of influence for the city for 30 years, and cities should grow. And so, I think we've seen it coming. It doesn't necessarily make it easier, but the exciting part is that it really is the greatest economic development tool that we can have for this county. It'll be a huge project and a huge benefit to everyone in the county. And it's the most economical way to bring water to that area. So it's really exciting. The tax agreement looks great. Proud of where we're at. So any other comments or questions? Okay, so we will bring it back to first the City Council. We have a suggested motion.
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Turner, move to adopt a resolution approving the South Lakeport Annexation Tax Sharing Agreement between the City of Lakeport and the County of Lake.
Parlett, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Froyo.
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Parlett.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner.
Aye.
And Mayor Matina.
Aye. Motion carries. Turn it over to Supervisor Crandall.
All right, it looks like we have a motion to entertain as well.
I will offer the resolution.
The resolution has been offered. Johanna, can you please conduct a roll call?
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Chair Crandall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you again for everyone for joining us tonight. This meeting is adjourned.
Adjourned.